Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Fully Booked Short-Term Rental Podcast. I'm here with my co-host and co-founder, Steve, and we have got a great topic for you today, folks.
Let's rock.
So today we're talking about what is, honestly, we believe, the most important booking channel. And plot twist, it's not Airbnb, it's not Vrbo, it's not Facebook Marketplace or Instagram ads. It's not even first-time direct bookings on your website. It's actually the guest relationship. So the guest relationship is the new most important booking channel. And it's been pretty much the most important booking channel in the rest of hospitality for probably since the beginning of hospitality as a concept, from taverns in prehistoric times and Roman times until now. And we're working on bringing that to short-term rentals as well, and kind of making sure that we are, as an industry, up at the same place and at the same level as every other hospitality vertical out there in terms of really leveraging the guest relationship as the easiest, the most lucrative, and the most fun booking channel out there.
Yeah, it's funny how, in a tech-obsessed world where you're like, what's the next app? What's the next connector? What's the next new high leverage point? What's the new hack? The answer is the people that are staying at your place. Like, you just get back to ancient times and you say,
Yeah.
What can I do to make this experience that they're having so noteworthy, so just exactly what it needs to be, that they want to come back the next time? Because all the fancy marketing tools that companies like Yada or others have to offer are only going to be as powerful as the memories that they help you recreate in the minds of your guests.
And just to bring it back a little bit, I have a couple of actually a really good friend that was a strategic or strategy consultant at Ritz at the executive level. So he was working with a lot of folks on the strategy and decision making level at that particular brand, and like they had two assets that one for one, or they essentially had three assets that were competing in terms of which one was the most important, but they were all equally important assets. Like the first was obviously the Ritz brand, because that means a lot, and there's a lot of associations with the Ritz brand. The second was the access to the real estate that they had, because a lot of their locations are at places where you can't just spin up another hotel and spin up another location. And the third most important thing was the relationships that they had with their customers and with their guests. And like that whole ecosystem around building a relationship the moment somebody steps through their door, or even before somebody steps through their door for the first time, and then continuing that relationship in some cases over decades and decades and decades, and dozens and dozens and dozens of repeat visits. So it's actually insane. I mean, I have a couple of friends who are Four Seasons loyalists, and they will only stay there when they're doing family trips or luxury trips, and they've probably a lifetime spent $150, $200, $300,000 with that brand. Same with other, some folks really love, Ritz or Intercontinental or things like that. But that equity that you have, like in that guest relationship, is not just like an immediate one-time transactions. To the best of operators, that relationship is a significant chunk of equity that you can then leverage over decades to really like lock in revenue, have a predictable operation, and more importantly, build a hospitality brand that folks want to visit again and again. Well, let's talk about how we do that, Steve.
Yeah, and I think it starts by splitting those ideas apart. A lot of people are going to have their existing homes in places that are enviable, are desirable. Like,
Yeah.
You don't buy a vacation rental in a dumpy zone that no one wants to go. So you've kind of got point number two, which is the location. But what a lot of people miss is point number one, which is the how to build that brand, and point number three, which is how to build that guest relationship. They're connected, but they are separate. So let's start with brand, because even though the topic of this is the guest relationship, you're not going to be able to have an actual relationship with all of your guests, but you will be able to make an impression upon them so that they can have a relationship with your brand. Like, how many people have ever really known the folks they've interacted with at Apple or at, Mercedes-Benz or like whatever your favorite brand is? Do you have a relationship with anybody there really? Maybe. But
Yeah.
what you have a relationship with is the brand, how that brand makes you feel, how the product or service from that brand has you see yourself and has you kind of living your life.
And I think that's important also to note this is, when you have a really good relationship with the brand itself, it it sort of like deprioritizes like a lot of other things, like nitpicky things that somebody might have with a specific product. Like I really love, like I don't own one right now, but I've always enjoyed Porsche as a brand because they're very like performance is in their DNA. They make pretty reliable cars if you take care of them right. I don't know a single person that works there, but I have like a very high degree of like aspirational desire to own one of those cars in the future. And I feel like I have a relationship with the brand. Like I keep on top of, what they release, like what their model lineup looks like, what reviewers say about them. And like we have this old Macan, which is, probably not worth that much, probably like a $10,000 car at this point. And it has a lot of problems. Like there's always something going wrong with it. It's like a 15-year-old car. So there's always like nitpicky little problems, but those become very like unimportant compared to the value that I attribute to the brand and to sort of like the aspirational goal of like driving one of those vehicles. So with short-term rentals and with hospitality, it's actually not that difficult to achieve the same thing. You can start like well before check-in. Like if somebody comes through an OTA, that's still going to be a good like awareness channel for folks to stay at one of your units for the first time. But from the first touch point that you have with them, the first message that you exchange, there has to be this very strong objective of like layering brand into each one of those touch points, so that as they have an awesome time at your place or an awesome vacation or an awesome first trip to the mountains or to the beach or wherever, they're building that relationship with not just like a physical piece of property that they happen to be staying with, but with your values, your mission, your brand, like what you're bringing to the table as an operator.
And it's important to note that we're not saying you need to compete with the Ritz. Like they've been at it a lot longer than you have. Most likely. Yeah. They've got deeper pockets than you, most likely. You're not going to beat them at their game. But where you can beat them is at your game. There is something you bring to the hospitality experience that a big brand cannot. And so by leaning into that and saying, this is what we represent, this is what you're going to experience when you stay with us, you will stand out. Like, don't try to beat the Ritz. Be yourself.
Interesting point to that. So the reason why I looked up for a second is you were saying that, and it doesn't have to be the Ritz. There's been this hotel that my family has been going out. It's even a motel, like on Cape Cod. It's like $130 a night. The place is like honestly not that nice. But like the name like immediately clicked in my head when I was, thinking about what you were saying. And as I was saying what I was saying, about like you don't have to be at like Ritz or Four Seasons level of pricing or exclusivity or whatever to have that brand equity. Like when I think of motel or like Cape Cod, it's been a place that I've been going to since I was a kid. The first thing I thought of was Cape View Motel, which is this like tiny like 15-room motel, like literally right off the highway, and they have like a cool view onto the like bay, so the sunset is kind of nice. But it's like nothing, it's not like a super luxury location or like an insane view or like anything that like, at face value, you would say like, oh, this is, a place like worth going back to like twice a year for, 20 years at this point since we started going there. But they did such a good job of like building a relationship between that brand and us as like a nice, fun, relatively inexpensive, easy to get to place to travel for the summer, that whenever we like go to the Cape, unless that place is completely fully booked, which like kudos to them, like it's starting to get, most summer weekends are very hard to get a room there. But it's like, it's always the first thing that I think about when I think about traveling to the Cape. It's like, all right, let me check if there's some room opens at the Cape View Motel. If not, I'll find like maybe some midday weeks where there is. So I'll literally like shift around my travel plans to be able to stay there. And again, this place is like not that nice. It's like old beds, like kind of dilapidated, again, like you just wouldn't like go out of your way to go there unless you had a relationship with that brand. But because they have that relationship with us, let's say we've spent like 70 or 80 nights there at an average of 200 or like $180 a night.
That's some cheddar. That's up.
Like that's money, right? That they can reasonably confidently say that they're going to get 5 nights from us every single summer. Like you're in, you're out. Like every single summer, they're going to get 5 or 6 nights from us. That's $1,000 to $1,200 a year.
And the interesting thing that brings up for me is there's the idea in cognitive science and economics that humans don't optimize. We actually, the word is satisfice. Like we go with the thing that is satisfactory for our needs. And I think the Cape View Motel is a perfect example of satisficing, where you could probably optimize your Cape Cod experience, but because you know it, it's just easy enough. Like it clears the bar, it does the job, and so you just do it. And so if you're thinking as an operator, oh, my stuff isn't as good as the place next door, why would they come back to mine rather than like look around? Like I shouldn't even bother. I'm just going to focus on the OTAs. You're missing the fact that humans satisfice. And so if we know you, if your guests have had that experience, the likelihood that they're going to have it again is much higher than someone finding you for the first time. So that's an important nugget to pack away there.
Well, I want to like double click on that for a second, because there's 2 things there that I want to talk about. First is how I think it's actually really interesting, because you see so many businesses fall into the same trap of like really trying to build the best product. Like in software, you have so many companies that just fail because they focus far more on building the best possible product in the world without ever testing it against like actual customers and users in the market. And I think if you're an operator and you're focused so much on like, re-renovating your house every year and rebuilding the pool deck or putting in a new hot tub or, adding new amenities every year and all of this type of stuff, and like really making the physical location optimal, but not really doing much on the branding side and the relationship building side, you're doing that to your own detriment. So you're falling into the same trap that a lot of, software builders might have, and like even restaurant owners, like they might have the best menu, but if they suck at getting the word out and getting people to come back, then, you've got the best kitchen in the world with an empty seating area in front. And then the second thing is, it was also kind of related to the Cape View Motel. I was trying to think about like what it was that made them so memorable, aside from like what used to be some really good pricing. But they had this, like in every room, they had like a plaque, like Cape View Motel, call us to get a better rate next time. Like there was just so much like positive reinforcement throughout the entire like visit of, you're at this motel, Cape View Motel, Cape View Motel. You can see the big sign on the road as you're driving. It just was not nondescript. So like while the room itself may have been nothing special, the way that the brand was presented was very, very memorable. So if you're an operator and somebody comes in through Airbnb, like instead of saying like, oh, hey, I'm Steve, say like, hey, I'm tiny lowercase Steve from Steve Vacation Rentals, and kind of like rethink how you're positioning like any sort of branding that you're doing, even in text-based communications before they arrive. And then second, like this sounds so dumb, but like put a big plaque next to your front door that says like Steve Vacation Rentals or Top Shelf Vacation Rentals, or just like, so they can't go in and out of the house without seeing like that big sign on the door or the plaque next to the wall that says this is my brand. Like in the house, you can have it in the living room, in the dining room, just like a lot of visible displays that indicate like where you're staying. I mean, like, let me see if I can, we're doing these podcasts a little bit more like the way that other ones are done, but like, let's take this for an example. I'm going to share my screen. Moxie Hotel. So we can see what I'm talking about. Here we go, entire screen. This one. So this is a hotel brand that does branding like better than anyone. Like on every building that they operate, they have the logo like just visible from like a mile away in like pink neon lettering, same as above the door. They use like every time I've been in a Moxie, like it has this like very purple look inside and like very distinctive like furnishing and things like it just does not look like an IKEA, you know, plug and play property. Like it is unique in a good way, and it's also like very, 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 very clearly branded. Like this building and these rooms are probably the most like nondescript, standard like shoebox, cookie cutter, private equity designed hotel rooms, but the brand itself is like impeccably strong with the coloring, with the logos, everything like that. So there's no like question at all about where you're staying. Like there is zero question whatsoever around where you are, and they all look the same. So if you go to a Moxie in Belgrade, Serbia, or a Moxie in New York, you know, in New York, or this one like Halifax, Nova Scotia, like you know you're there.
And they basically made two decisions in order to bring that to life. One was what's the logo, the other is what's the color scheme, and then they put it everywhere. So you don't need a multi-million-dollar branding budget to make this happen. I was actually on a call with an operator earlier today who you could see his color palette from the logo, from the room shots, and it gave this experience of thoughtfulness. And if your guests experience thoughtfulness from your brand, they can project what the experience is going to be like, and they can also see themselves in that, right? It was called Zen Apartment, something like that. And it felt very Zen. And so if that's the experience you want to give your guests, you know, Moxie has that chartreuse color. It's like if you want to have your guests feeling smart and energetic for staying with you, or relaxed and tuned for staying with you, let your brand do that work. And that is how they can build that value and pay a premium, build that loyalty, because you made just a couple of little decisions that align with who you are and the values of your business.
Yeah, and speaking of Zen, I just want to take a look at that as well. Again, like very memorable logo. Like the Z is very obvious. The colors are consistent across the site. Obviously, with the furniture inside, it has this very like soothing, warm, neutral European like dark cream color. Like this is really stuff that goes in the right direction. So, you know, I would recommend like being thoughtful about your logos and about your colors and your things like that. This guy Alex is one of our co-founders, so you know, we can dig in here, but like, you know, very obviously like very obvious brand, top shelf, like it's like there's a lot there that really like it reinforces like who you're staying with. So I think this is something that everyone can take home with them after listening to this call. Is like, you know, I don't know if we're going to have time. Maybe we can continue with this on our next episode, but like just going down the list of like very easy, like super straightforward tactical things that you can do to just increase your brand value and start building that relationship between the brand and the guests. And the first is like have a logo that is fun and a name that is fun and that makes sense. Like it has to be memorable. It has to be fun. It has to make sense. Feel free to play around with colors, like be consistent about your design choices and your design palette. Like, you know, we're not saying that you have to redesign your houses, but at least on your website, like, you know, have similar colors and branding and logos throughout. And then even if you have a name that doesn't like immediately roll off the tongue, a lot of those things can be made to look good with the right logo, with the right color scheme, and just be put front and center so that every time a guest is interacting with your property, especially after they check in, you just have that reinforcement mechanism like happening hundreds of times a day while they're staying there.
Yeah. So that was a lot on brand, with the purpose being pointing out how your brand is not just a business asset. It is the, and I was going to use a software term, it's the API for that guest relationship. It's the place that a guest can plug in and start building that relationship with you, find themselves in it, feel that sense of self-actualization, right? If you're staying at the Zen apartments, you see yourself as a very kind of Zen mindful person.
Yeah.
It's going to be part of your own story and your own journey for that trip. It's going to have an impact and make a difference.
Yeah. So kind of bring it back to what we started off this conversation with about the relationship being the third pillar and the third of the triarchy of equally valuable assets that hospitality brands put emphasis on. That relationship, like branding and relationship, like really do fall into the same bucket in a way. Like your brand value is something that directly impacts like how quickly that relationship can be built. Because like to put it very simply, like a message coming from a person is going to be far less memorable for hospitality than a message coming from a person within the context of a brand. So if I say, hey, I'm Peter and I have an apartment, Steve, come back and stay with me, that's far less impactful than me saying like, hey, I'm Peter and I run Petrovia luxury apartments in Watertown, Massachusetts. We'd love to have you back again. Like that, like layering in brand and layering in those little like events and touch points that let that relationship happen organically is what allows you to send messaging and send reminders and send notes and offers and promotions and things like that after they leave, and have them actually reach somebody's inbox and reach their decision making and their travel decision making in a way that might actually convert into a new reservation, into a new repeat booking. So like we talk about this all the time about how it's a life cycle and essentially a flywheel. Like you attract the customer through the OTAs, you give them a great stay through a guest experience that builds brand loyalty and brand awareness and brand relationships, and then that drives repeat bookings, which then drives another visit, which then drives more positive reinforcement, just keeps on feeding on itself. So it's, you can't really separate the relationship from the brand, because the quality of the relationship is in very large part dictated by how good your brand is, and of course by millions of other factors, like how good your service was. Like, were you able to provide them with good service? Did they get what they were expecting while they were staying there? Did you go above and beyond? Again, it's hospitality, so you have this sort of implied contract with the guest to go above and beyond to provide a great experience. And if there's if there's another piece of advice that I'd give, it's that if you're in a hospitality business, like unless you're really doing low cost accommodations, a la Spirit Airlines, going above and beyond is a very, very cheap price to pay for an incredibly high degree of brand equity and relationship building with the guest.
So let's talk about the ways to build that relationship. We recently got back from a family vacation to Scotland, and a couple experiences really stood out in my mind from that hospitality experience as a guest. One was the gift basket at the Highland Club. Like this was our big splurge. We were like, we want to stay at a castle. We couldn't find any castles at that, but we found this old converted abbey, which kind of castle right on the banks of Loch Ness. It was this really cool place.
Oh, that's super cool.
It was amazing. One of the things they did, when you check in, there was a monster gift basket. It was like just a big old, welcome gift. We were paying a premium price, and they baked that basket into the price, but we were not expecting like dinners to be covered. Like within that basket included, just add hot water to this, just open up this packet. Like it had a fully functional kitchen and everything. And usually you're like, okay, I guess I'll have to go to the grocery store. Maybe I'll heat up some leftovers.
They covered your first 24 hours probably, so that you could just get in there and enjoy and like not have to think about anything when you get there.
Right. And so it was like that touch that made me say, this is awesome. Like they really thought about who is their guest, what does that person need to do, and what could be solved for them. And that was spectacular. The next thing they did was they had some branded swag that was really good. So they gave a little tote bag, a little canvas tote
You should bring it to the next episode so we can see what that looks like.
I'll bring the swag to the next episode.
Yeah.
So that was there. But on the tote was, if you enjoyed your stay, tag us in some pictures on Instagram, and it gave their Instagram handle. And that was what was so brilliant, because like, even if you're like, I'm not going to use your food, I'll just, leave it for the next person, or just take it home, or let the cleaners have it, whatever. I'll take this tote, and the tote says what to do to spread that brand out to your network. It was just brilliant.
Yeah. I think that is brilliant, man. And it's really not that expensive, and it's really not that much of a lift to do. I mean, I've seen operators that have like 24 units just spend one day a week assembling like, 48 or 50 or 60 baskets. And it takes them, I don't know, let's say like a minute per basket or 2 minutes per basket. So it's like 2 hours for 2 weeks of work. And just have the cleaning and turnover crew like drop it off. But like, I mean, even at the cheapest of motels that I've stayed with, they always provide like 6 coffee packs and like maybe some instant oatmeal. So even if I'm paying like $100 a night, I know that like the next day I can just wake up, make like a cup of crappy coffee. Like, yeah, it'll be crappy coffee, but at least it's coffee. And that's just like a really, really positive way to start a day. And I think if you're a short-term rental operator, like leaving, 6 Keurig cups, or like just a box of K-cups, or if you have an espresso machine, like, 5 or 6 pods, and just making sure that like that is on like the tier 1 and priority 1 of your turnover items could make a big difference. And the second thing is, to your point, Steve, like all of those touches that you do for the guests need to be visible. So if you're leaving somebody like coffee pods and things like that, I don't give a crap if I open like 10. I've said a lot of Airbnb, like short-term rentals, I should say, we don't want to be exclusive around Airbnb. But I've said a lot of short-term rentals where like, yeah, somebody might leave coffee or instant oatmeal or something like that, but I have to open up like 10 cabinets to find it. If it's like literally like a box with like 6 K-cups on it with like a thoughtful note from the host or the operator or whatever, like on the countertop, like, hey, so glad to have you staying with us. Like, we know that it's been a long trip. This is for tomorrow morning when you need your coffee, so you don't have to go to the coffee shop. And there's just like 6 K-cups and a Keurig machine right behind me. And like immediately, like that cost them like $2, I think, or like $3 if you get them in bulk. It's like super cheap, probably like 20 seconds to write that letter. That immediately, like if the maximum number of like brand equity points is 100 and the minimum is 0, that adds like 15 to 20. And I'm not even exaggerating. Like they were looking at, again, like most of the studies, like industry wide or for hotels, they're just not enough like studies of this nature for short-term rentals, but I think they're pretty applicable. Like visibly leaving coffee does more to increase brand value than like pretty much anything else. It's like the most insane ROI thing that you could do is just to like visibly leave a box of K-cups with a note that says, hey, we're so glad you're staying with us. This is for tomorrow morning when you wake up and you need your first cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Or stuff like that. It's like relationship building, like going above and beyond in ways that actually matter. Like putting in a new pool. I don't care if somebody's put in a new pool. Like, I'm not comparing before and after photos, to be very honest. Like you put in a new pool if the old one is failing and an expert comes in, a structural engineer comes in and says like, hey, your concrete is at risk of cracking and you're losing $1,000 a day due to cracks in the pool lining. And it's like, okay, that's $1,000, not dollars, gallons of water a day. So definitely not $1,000. If you're losing $1,000 a day, you've got bigger problems. But those types of little things that like build relationships and like give you the warm and fuzzies are so critical.
And just to kind of wrap it up here on the relationship side of things, once you know something about someone, you should have a file on them. So if somebody has a stay with you,
yes,
you need a record for that guest where when they say, where's the best vegetarian place in town? Cool, we know they're interested in vegetarian food. Is there a kids museum nearby? Cool, they've got kids, or you probably even have that from the booking. So like adding that to their file, to their guest record, will allow you to actually be hospitable in a high leverage, low lift way. And that's what you're looking for when you're building relationships. What are the K-cups that I can put with a little note that the cleaners can leave? What are the acknowledgments of who this person is and what I know about them that's easy to do and doesn't require 20 minutes of research to just add that little touch?
Yeah.
All of those things build the relationship, which allow that person to be primed for their next stay with you, which is why we say the relationship is the
I'm so glad you touched on it, Steve. That is critical stuff. Like, use Yada, use Excel, use Notion, it doesn't matter. Like, capture the guest data, augment it and enrich it with stuff that they tell you, like either on like because you asked or because it just comes up as a matter of conversation or they ask a question or anything like that. Save that information, put it somewhere. That's what lets you turn those warm and fuzzies while they're there into the type of messaging and outreach and contact 6 months from now, 8 months from now, 3 months from now, that turns into a repeat booking. So you give them a really beautiful, magical experience when they arrive and when they're there. You learn what you can about them, kind of like when you're talking, again, to like a normal human being, like having some information about them, like what do they like? What do they prefer? What are their preferences and how do they like to travel and things like that. Lets you reach back out to them intelligently in a couple of months' time to give them an offer to come back.
Very good. Well, we went a little longer than usual, but because there's so much to go into here. So next time I'll bring my Highland Club tote bag to show, one example of the swag you can give, especially if you charge a slightly higher rate. And if you want to see how Yada can help you with your CRM, your guest relationship, that kind of outreach and magical experience, head over to yada.ai and we'll be happy to show you around.
Yes, indeed. This is a great episode. I'm really excited because we're starting to get into some topics that I think we're both really passionate about. And as kind of people that live in that intersection of technology and hospitality, we get really, we're really passionate. We have some good insights and we're going to be bringing on some cool people to maybe augment some of these conversations in the future and help provide some perspective, like real world case studies and stories and things like that of how these things really helped businesses grow and relationships happen and things like that. So stay tuned because there's going to be a lot of really cool stuff in the pipe for future episodes.
Thanks, everybody. Talk to you next time.